What is going on, everybody? Thank you so much for listening. Wanted to put this at the top of the episode. So when I recorded with Oscar, it's a fantastic episode, but we did have some technical difficulties. I salvaged what I could. We did lose about 5-10 minutes in the middle, but I believe I got it all working correctly. It should sound great. Thank you again for listening. Subscribe, rate, and review. Subscribe on Patreon. You know the deal, and enjoy the episode. Yeah, you're on the bottom, so just keep that in mind.
Ooh, love that. I love that. Can we just do an hour of you just saying you're on the bottom?
Oh, I'll probably say it a few more times. Don't forget, you're on the bottom.
Oh,
wow. Here we go. 3.
Really? You're not going to use that? I thought that was great.
No, all this will stay in.
Grab me a beer and grab him a coke. We bout to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brandon T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brandon Taz if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz if it's your ex drinking buddy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tassif. If you are new to the show, I'll give you a quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was my favorite thing to do drugs, get drunk, hang out with friends, get in trouble, and reminisce about old stories. I'm sober now, but that is still one of my favorite things to do, hang out with people and reminisce. I will be joined by a guest most weeks. This week is no exception. Joined in his apartment all the way from New York City, Oscar Aydin.
Oh my gosh. I love this. That's a great intro. I'm awful at intros.
Yeah.
Like
Are you?
every person that's been on the podcast that I've done, I've had to redo the intro 7 times.
Well, speaking of your podcast, plug everything up front. We'll do it again at the end, but let everyone know where they can find you. So you're a comedian, You play at the Stand, you're a regular there.
Right. So you can find me at the Stand, you can find me at Broadway, you can find me at Greenwich Comedy Club. You can find me on Instagram at It's Oscar Aydin, and then also I'm on Twitter at I Have GADHD. And then I have a new podcast that just released. I'm 4 episodes in. You can listen to that on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's called Oh Oscar, O-H Oscar.
Oh, Oscar.
That's
what is it about?
So what I do is I bring guests on. We talk about we talk about them, and then we talk about their first gay experience.
Okay.
And then they explain that, and then we do a Wheel of GADHD Q&A where they spin the wheel, and then they basically are like, oh, okay, and I ask them questions.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
It was a lot of fun. I had Vanessa Jackson, not this past one, but episode 3, and it was such a good episode, but the audio didn't work.
Oh no!
And it was, but I made it work. I pushed it out there, but she spun, and then it landed on, okay, ask Oscar a question. And so it's where the interviewee becomes the interviewer, and she was like, all right, in the comedy community, who would you wanna fuck? And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah. And so I told her, and only she knows, but
You didn't put it out there on the podcast?
I put it out there, but I edited out what I said.
Name, yeah.
I literally edited it out so you can't hear it, but only she knows. And she was shocked.
Really?
Shocked. She was like, oh my God, really? I was like, yeah.
So now what you have to do is you have to start a Patreon, and then you have to put those edited things on the Patreon.
Oh.
See there?
Ooh.
Now you're thinking with your noggin.
Oh, look at that. No, we're thinking with yours, not mine, because I'm awful at that.
It's weird because I just do a lot of stuff that I see other people do. But then I moved to New York, and then I'm talking to comics. Like you pass at the Stand, you're playing all over. And then people are like, yeah, I think I should start a podcast. And I was like, I already have like merch and a Patreon and like all this stuff, just only because that's what I thought we were supposed to do.
Oh, yeah. I've been doing comedy for a while, and only last year did someone say, you need to be taping all your sets. And I was like,
You don't tape all your sets?
No, I don't tape them all.
Oh, Oscar.
I tape.
Oh, Oscar.
I know. See, there you go. I tape 1 in 10 sets.
Oh, I audio record every set.
I try and get into that.
Yeah, I have to because I tell a story. You're much better than I am, especially with the punchy stuff. Like you're bang, 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 bang. I try to tell stories, and a lot of times I will lose tags if I don't record it. Because I'll say something on a whim and it'll get a laugh, and then I'm like, oh, I should have
written that, or
I should have written that down or recorded it. So now, and then Matt Fulcheron, who's a very funny comic, friend of the show, told me instead of sitting in my apartment and writing, because sometimes you can get writer's block that way, when I walk around the city, I'll just voice record into my notes if I think of something, and then I have it. Because there's so many times, I don't know if this happens with you, but there's so many times where we're like, oh, I've had that thought before, and it's funny. I'll remember that.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
that's interesting.
what the fuck was I thinking about earlier today?
Oh, I know. And I have the worst ADHD. So, like, if someone's like, oh, do you remember that? I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
I don't remember anything. Usually, I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea what I'm talking about half the time.
That's why we have to record all this.
Yeah,
So then you always know.
Yeah.
I want to talk about you. So when did you start? Have you always been in New York? When did you start doing comedy? Let's get into it.
Oh my gosh. So I started comedy, I think, when I was born. I mean, I just came out of the closet and I was like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this show on the road. No, I started comedy in New York in a while back, and I actually started in improv. And I realized that I am awful in improv. Yeah. I am awful.
It's a running theme on the show how I feel about improv and sketch comedies.
Yeah, sketch comedy I love.
Yeah,
improv I'm like I don't.
It's your ADD. Your ADHD.
Oh yeah, it's awful. Also, I'm a homosexual. I'm not going to share the stage with anybody. When was the last time you saw a homosexual share the stage with anyone? That's why it's a competition. When you call RuPaul, it's called RuPaul's Drag Race for a reason. It's a competition.
Yeah.
No queen wants to share the stage with anyone because we.
Were you like being aggressive in improv? Like, shut up.
No, I was just being very politically incorrect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not like offensive, but I'm politically incorrect, and they don't tolerate that. They want everyone to love the idea that you are on Mars with a washing machine with your grandma, and you have to say yes and everything. And I was like, yeah, no, that doesn't fly with me.
Yes, no, that's not gonna work.
I was like, no, I don't want to fucking do that. I don't want to be on Mars with a fucking dishwasher. It's so stupid. And then,
so you started. I'm sorry. Are you from New York?
No, I'm from Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so you were still around.
I was in theater.
Okay.
Shockingly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was in theater. Surprise. I was in theater, and then
What does Derek say? Plot twist.
Yeah, plot twist. I was in theater, and that kind of was like, oh, I like being on stage. I like being in front of people. I mean,
okay,
shocking.
So you were a talent in theater, because I've had people on who do directing and sound and lighting and all that.
I was on stage, but I was never anything like fabulous. I was never anything fabulous. Like when I was in all the school plays, I was the rabbi in Fiddler on the Roof. And then this is how old I already looked in high school. I was the rabbi in Fiddler on the Roof. I was the mayor in Bye Bye Birdie, and I was the dead brother in. And so there was definitely a theme here of how I was like, all right, I'm not going to get any of the leading roles. Okay.
I understand. I am a character actor, apparently, the older character actor.
Yeah. And so then I did I did theater, and then I was like, all right, I'll try improv. Improv was awful. And then
this is in New York.
Yeah, so I did the
theater in Chicago, then you moved to New York.
Yep. And then I did a stand-up comedy class with Jordan Carlos when he was teaching at the Pit. And so I did a class.
What prompted you to do the class? You just wanted to try it?
Yeah, I was like, I'll try it, see how it goes.
Okay.
And so I did it, and he thought I was really good. I didn't write anything. I think I wrote a few things. And then I brought a bunch of people to come see me, and I just had the best time on stage. And I loved how everybody was focused on me and it was about me and, and I just did crowd work. And then I kind of just let it go because I didn't know what else. I didn't know what the next steps were. No one took me by the side. No one took me on the side and said, all right, now this is what you got to do.
Yeah, now this is where we go.
Right. You got to go right and do open mics and test material and this and that. And I'm like, oh, well, no one taught me that. So I just did a bunch of bringer shows. And then I stopped for a while because I needed to live and pay rent in New York City. And then I started again in 2015, 2016, running an open mic at Bunga's Den. And then I did a little bit of Chrissy Mayer, had a show at Stonewall called Comedy at Stonewall. So I would do that show. And then I had to work and I had to get another job. And so I didn't do comedy. And then I started again in the end of 2019. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. I was doing open mics, this and that. And then 2020 hit and then it all just came crashing down.
Yeah.
And then during the pandemic, I was like, all right, let me just do some Zoom open mics because I'm bored as fuck. So let me do some Zoom open mics. I started doing Zoom open mics. I started writing. I started doing some things. And then I was like, all right, well, and I started writing and writing and writing and writing. And then things just kind of happened. And I was booked on this show and then that show. And then I won another competition. I won a New York Underground Comedy Festival, which had like 250 comedians. And so I was chosen, winner of that. And that was for me, that was a big deal because I'd never really won. Yeah, even though it wasn't a really big competition, it was still, one that was fairly well known. And so
you won it.
Yeah. And so I won it and it was amazing. And that kind of just pushed me. And so I was like, all right, let's keep going. January comes around. I started producing my own show because I wasn't in any of the clubs. So I was like, well, I always say, if you don't have a seat at the table, bring one.
Yeah, that's good.
So, that's what I did. I started producing my own show. I was like, all right, we're going to do this. And then I got passed at Broadway and Greenwich. And then by the luck of the draw, I did a show at The Stand.
Now, was it a produced show?
It was a produced show.
Okay. If you see me on here, it's only because I'm writing notes down.
No. So I was on a produced show at The Stand, and it was a Bushwick Bears show, and I literally
What is that?
It was run by Derek Humphrey and two other comics. I forgot their name, but
it
was a lot of fun.
Whenever you say Bears, I always immediately think.
I know. Don't say that because I'm kind of, and so what happened is I did the show, and then I guess Joe saw me, passed on my tape to Patrick, and then Patrick emailed me and said, why don't you come in for an audition?
Oh, really? So that's how it happened?
Yeah.
So that's the thing I'm always so fascinated by how it happens, only because
it was literally out of the blue.
That's the thing, is it's so bananas how, so like I've been doing comedy since 2009. I finally get on years ago, get to like, all right, I need to starting the podcast. And I'm like, I'm going to New York. It was New York or LA. And I just love New York. So I'm going to New York. And I got here and I joke with some of my regular time. It's had I known I would get here at zero, have or worked on the podcast or done it, like I would have just came here. Sorry about that, everyone. We had some technical difficulties. So we left off where we were talking about you were talking about going around to different spots in the city, doing things like that. Then we kind of got into crowd work, which you're incredibly good at, and engaging the audience, things like that. Then we were bringing up comics that we really like with crowd work. We left off with Aaron Berg, who's great with it.
Yeah.
Who says some outrageous stuff on stage, but gets away with it.
You know what it is he is, I think, one of the biggest things is making sure that you hit on everything and everyone when you're doing crowd work. Like you can't just get into a crowd, find a certain type of person and just go after them constantly, because what happens is it can be fun in the beginning,
Then you
However-
alienate the entire room.
However, all of a sudden, the person gets annoyed, and now the audience feels bad for them, and they're not laughing anymore, and then it gets awkward.
Yeah. Has that ever happened to you?
No, because I'm
You're good
very
about-
I try and read the room as best as possible.
Yeah.
When I'm like, okay, these people are not loving the crowd work, so I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna move on, and that's the thing. Is like it's learning how to move on, and also like crowd work is a weird beast because you got to be able to really be quick. I see a lot of comics who do crowd work, and it's just painful.
Yeah.
It's painful to watch because they're trying to step out of their comfort zone, do crowd work, and they're not quick enough to respond to things because there could be an audience where you're talking to someone, you're doing crowd work, and then all of a sudden a girl or a guy just starts yelling at you, heckling at you in the middle of it. And you have to be able to know how to control the audience and bring it back to you.
Yes.
And I did a show a while back ago. The host got up on stage, and just started doing jokes and this and that, but then started doing crowd work. And then what happened is they let the people in the audience have a conversation with them on stage.
Cannot do that.
And it was just like this. It turned from a show to a conversation because then what happens is the next person that got up was thrown off because the people in the audience thought it was a conversation thing.
Yeah. I
And they
tell
were like,
people all
oh,
the
well,
time.
I got to talk to the host. Why can't I talk to you?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like you got to find a way to do it in a funny way, but also like in I got this.
Exactly.
And you bring it back to you because inevitably you're controlling the room.
You don't want to make it an interactive show. And I say that when I see a comic go up before me and they same exact thing where they'll try to like be funny and then they turn it and then you can tell as a comic in the back, you're like, do not answer that question that they do. Like, don't do it. And then the comic will engage with them. And you're like, you've just turned it into an interactive show now.
Yeah.
Now they think they're a part of this.
Well, the thing is, though, is that you can always ask people. Like, that's why I make fun of people because I'm like, I'll ask people, oh, like, how long have you guys been together? And they'll be like, oh, we started dating. I was like, girl, I didn't ask you for your Hallmark story. I just give me a day. Give me a few numbers. Give me like one or two. All right, let's do math here.
It's always so funny when it's like, what do you do? And they're like, oh, well. And they're like, all right, too long.
Yeah, like if I ask someone, I'm like, oh, so what do you do? And they just stare at me. I literally just say out loud, I was like, well, this is amazing. And I'm like, well, this is exactly why I got into comedy.
This is why I do this.
This is why I do comedy, so that way I can stand here and hear silence from people, right? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're a loud motherfucker when you're drunk or when you're having sex, but now when you're talking to a homosexual on stage, you're just quiet. And
Do you say that? Please tell me you say that.
that is homophobic. So yeah,
It's so funny. That's so good.
yeah.
Let's talk about so we got into like how you got to New York starting comedy, then of course past the Stand and Broadway and Greenwich Village, which is all, I mean, that's huge, especially because there's so many people out there trying that.
Yeah.
You made it through. That's awesome. You've made it to that next level. And using transitive property, we could argue, I think the Stand is probably one of the best clubs in New York. New York is the best city for comedy. So if you really think about it, you're past at one of the best clubs in the world.
Yeah, I think of it as, I'll give you the top two is Cellar and then the Stand.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, and all the other clubs are amazing they're great, but if we're just defining
Yeah, exactly.
the top two, I would say it goes the Cellar and then the Stand because you get comics that go to the Cellar, and then you get comics that go to the Stand. Like Bill Burr is at the Stand. You get Dave Chappelle at the Stand.
Gaffigan,
You get
drop-ins
Gaffigan.
at the Stand all the time.
You get all these people who come to the Stand. Like, who was there the other week that just swung by because they were going to do time, but they didn't want to because it was just too much? Chris Rock. Chris Rock literally walks into the Stand, is like, I'm gonna check the show out, see if I can do some time, and then that's it. Like, the amount of people that you can network with and see and talk to at any of the clubs, but especially like the Cellar and the Stand. And I think, the greatest thing about the people that I've worked with at all the clubs is they're like, this is a stepping stone for you. They're like, we love you.
Yeah.
But this is a stepping stone for you. Like, this is a stepping stone for you to get to your next level.
Yeah,
And
this is not the end of getting past at any of these clubs is not, okay, I'm done. It's, okay, now I have a way to network with other comics.
Right.
To help with the podcast and to help with booking dates and to help with, this and that.
Right.
And then you keep going.
And as a host at the Stand, I think is probably one of the biggest honors.
Yeah.
Because what I'm doing is they're entrusting me to be able to bring a room together at one of the biggest clubs. And I mean,
it's a hard job too.
It's a very hard job. Like the other night I had the lineup was insane. It was Mike Falzone, it was Shane Gillis, it was Derek Gaines, it was just Jordan Jensen. It was just
Love
the
Jordan
number.
Jensen.
Yeah,
I saw her for the first time a couple weeks ago.
Brilliant.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So you're literally performing with people that are also like national stars.
Yeah, they're known commodities.
Right. Yeah. They're known people. So like to be able to, and then they get to know who you are.
Yeah.
Because they see you hosting and they're like, all right, and this and that. And like, I hosted a good example is I hosted a show with Ashley Hesseltine. And Ashley Hesseltine was on the show, and we had such a blast. I remember, I was hosting a show where I did a spot, and she was sitting in the audience, and it was one of those nights where it was like maybe 15 people in the audience, and I was like, fuck this. We're going to have amazing time. We had a great time. I did well, and she was like, and we started chatting, and she's like, oh my gosh, you're so funny. I love you. We started chatting. I started hosting shows that she was on. And from that, she was like, hey, I'm doing my, 1 hour special at the Stand. Do you want to open for me?
Boom.
And I was like, yeah, I do. And so through that, now not only have I made a good friend, but it was a big opportunity. I mean, that was huge.
Yeah, it's an honor to be asked to do that.
It's an honor that if you think about it, it's an honor that people entrust that you can build up and make a room so much fun that when they get on stage, the opener, guest, or feature spots should do all of the work so that the guest or the however the spots are, so that the headliner, when they get on, they don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
It is just go, 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 go. When I do my special, I'm going to put people on the show that I know that when I get on stage, I won't have to do anything.
Yeah, it's going to be ready to go.
Yeah, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to worry about warming them up or not having them be tight or things like that. I'm going to get on stage and it is going to be, let's rock this motherfucking house down.
Yeah, exactly. And I always found it interesting when comedians would tour or take people out with them that they knew weren't very strong, because then it made them look better. I never understood that, because one of the guys that I would feature for a lot, Marcus Crespo, he's really known in the Southeast, friend of the show, love him to death. He brought people that would make him work.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're saying, I want it to be so good before I get up there that I can just go.
Right.
And it pushes you to try harder, to be better, to do better.
Because I don't, if I think about it, when I did Ashley Hesseltine's show, I wanted it so that when she got on stage, the audience was just like, oh my God, we're having an amazing time. This is going to be amazing. I don't want her to get on stage and just have it be tight, because if she's filming this, it's an hour of wasted material if no one's laughing or it's tight or no one's having fun or something happens, right? Mm-hmm. That's the thing, is you gotta make it so that way if they're filming something, it just sounds like holy shit.
Yeah, and it's up to you as the person going in front to make that right.
Right.
Which is awesome that, like you said, it's great that they've entrusted you with that, because a lot of people look at hosting and they go, I don't want to host. Like, fuck that. Like, go up first, do the shortest amount of time, and then, like, you know, everyone's tight, and I don't want to. I mean, I've been in that situation before in different, obviously, scenes where I'm like, I really got to host. Like, I don't. But the way you put it, it's almost like an honor. It's like, no, I get to host. They trust me enough to get this going.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, I guess I've just, for a while now, I've kind of changed my mindset, and I'm like, okay, what's the silver lining in this?
Yeah.
What is
Positive.
the silver lining in this, right? And the silver lining is, yeah, I'm hosting, and I'd like to have some spots so that way I can work on the 15-minute material or 20-minute material. But to be entrusted in hosting is a huge deal. It's a huge deal in any show, because you and my friend Dan Janine, who produces a lot of shows and does comedy and, you know, has become a really good friend. You know, and it's very true. It's like he says, the most important people on a show are usually the host, and then the first comic, and then the last comic.
Yep.
Those are
That's
like,
what everyone
I mean,
remembers. Everybody's
everybody's important, but always the host, the first comic, and the last comic, those are the people that people will remember most. I would think sometimes the most. Unless you're like just, I mean, you know, unless
It's
you're like
interesting you
Bill
say
Burr that comes out in the middle of it. Yeah.
When I did the industry room at Broadway, I obviously, to bring her, I brought a few people, like 15 people, but it's a packed room.
Right.
And I was talking. It's so funny you say what you just said, because I was talking to my friends after, and they said the host was really good, but the first two comics he brought out, we thought, oh, this is going to be a very long night, and that's what they remember. So there was a lot of good comics on there, a lot of funny comics.
Well, that's also
But
an industry show.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a regular show.
That's true, but what I'm saying is these people who have nothing to do with comedy just came out to watch a show. They remembered the first two people that went up.
Exactly.
They couldn't tell me about. There was a lot of good the great comics that went. They couldn't really differentiate between that. They just remembered the first two that went up, and then the last one that went up.
Yep. So it's usually the host, the first comic, and then the last comic.
Yeah, and that's what they everyone remembered the first comic, which is fascinating, because like you said, it's the industry room. It's a bringer show. We all know why we're there, but still, there's something just physiological about the brain where they're like, this is what they're taking in.
That's why a lot of times I think, and this is just my thought, is that when they tape their special, it'll be three people. It'll be the opener, it'll be the host, it'll be the opener, and then it'll be that person.
Yeah.
Because that's all you really need. In that sense, at least when you're recording, that's all you need. Is you need a host of this, and then someone who's doing that,
yeah.
and that's it. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about you.
Oh my God, even more.
Even more. Don't forget, you're on the bottom.
I love that.
I wanted to talk to you about, so obviously the show Ex Drinking Buddy, it's about drinking stories and whatnot. Now, my listeners know I'm normally get a list, and we go through the list, and then we kind of tie it all into everything. But Oscar, love that he is, I got here, and he just goes, I got it. So we're going to let you ride this choo-choo train wherever you want to go.
That's so hot.
I've been around you quite a few times. I never see you going too crazy. You're always very reserved, very.
Yeah, I don't drink when I'm working.
Okay, so you see I love to see that. It's very professional. I get so mad when people get on stage and they're like, oh, I'm so wasted. It's like, then get off. Like, you're wasting everyone's time.
Yeah, I mean, unless you know how to handle it really well.
Well, there's real.
Yeah, but then I'm like, no, I don't want to drink because I don't want it to impair any type of judgment, especially at like large clubs. I'll have a drink here and there, right? I'll have a drink here and there if I'm having a stressful night. If I'm halfway through a show and like it's like the last two comics, I'll have a drink.
Yeah.
Right? But I try not to have a drink before any show because it's like I don't want to have a drink while I'm trying to work. Because
and then you stumble a line, and then all of a sudden it's like, fuck, that's only because I drank, and now you're in your head. And then
right. So
it's a whole thing.
No, I don't drink, but I used to drink a lot, actually.
Did you?
Oh, my God. I drank
This is exciting.
so much. In college,
Where did you go to
Holy
college?
fuck! I went to a community college.
Okay.
And I
Here or in Chicago?
In Chicago, outside of Chicago, and I used to drink so much.
When did you start? Let's get into it. When did you start drinking? Like,
I don't know. I just did it to be cool. I
Okay,
guess.
so you
I never
started,
really
like,
drank
high
to
school
I never
and-
drank to enjoy it. I just did it to be cool and fit
yeah,
in.
and then you get into college, and then what happens?
And then like I just went full force.
Okay.
And I would drink, 6-7 pints of like the pint glasses
Yeah.
of beer
Just
every
down.
Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and there was one time when, it was the last day of college. It was the last day of college, and my parents were coming the next day because it was kind of like a graduation ceremony. So my
Yeah.
parents were coming the next day. I got so drunk that apparently I threw up all over the dorm, in the hallway, in the reception
Really?
area. Yeah. And I
Just
woke
like a
up
constant
and
stream of
vomit all the way everywhere. And I woke up and I was like, I don't remember a thing.
Oh my God.
I don't even remember getting into bed. That's how bad it was. Like I never even
What was
remember-
it? Was it just celebrating that it was done?
Yeah. I was
Okay.
like, fuck this. And people were like, you literally destroyed the hallway and reception area and everything of the dorm. And I was like, I don't remember anything.
So what
I don't-
happened? Did you get a bill, like a cleaning bill, or?
Now I was really like smooches with
Yeah.
like the dorm person.
Yeah, you're like,
So,
oh my God,
I mean,
I'm
I'm
so
so sorry, and plus I'm gay, and you love gay people, and like just let it be, right? And so yeah, I didn't have to do anything, but yeah, I got so blackout drunk. And then there was another time where I was drinking so I just moved to New York City, and I went to a big gay dance party called the Black Party. And the Black Party is a kind of like a very
Is this like a
leather-
known thing?
It was back
Okay.
like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
5-10 years ago. It's a black party, and they call it Black Party because it's like all leather.
Yeah, okay.
And like dominatrix and this and that. But it's not all, you don't have to be in leather, but that's what it's called. And so I went, and
It's kind of recommended. It's
right.
not.
And so I was there, and I think I had like a drink or two. And then I took a hit of, and I had never done this before, but I took a hit of my friend's weed, one weed, something.
Yeah, one hitter, yeah.
Yeah, one hitter. I think that thing was laced with acid.
Oh, really? What happened?
Because literally I was dancing on the dance floor. And then the next moment, I open my eyes, and the only thing I hear are people whispering. I'm in the middle of a dance floor. There are at least 1,000 shirtless gay men around me dancing. And the only thing I hear is whispering.
Oh, no.
So I don't know if it was the drink. I don't know if it was the acid. But I left. I was like, I gotta go. Somehow I got into a cab. I got home. I was up for 3 days.
3 days?
I was up for 3 days. I did not sleep. I
Were
thought
you
I was
panicking?
dead. Yeah, I thought I was dead. I got into
Oh
my
my
bed. I remember I got into my bed, laying at the ceiling, and I was like, I'm actually dead. They are looking at my dead body on the dance floor right now.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So what happened? Were you working at the time? Like, did you have to call out? Like, what?
No, I went into work. I don't know how I did it. I don't know. To this day, there's still parts of me where I'm like, I'm shocked I survived.
Yeah. This is why I love doing the show, because people have a tendency to gloss over like those little things. Like, yeah, I got so hammered I would like slept for 3 days. And it's like, okay, well, that's crazy, but logistically, there's things that are going on around you all the time. How did you eat? How did you get fired? How did you pay your rent that month? Like, those little things are the kind of thing that I'm so fascinated by. So,
Oh yeah, I don't know how it happened. I don't know.
you
what
just showed up to work,
showed up
dead
to work,
behind the eyes, like
dead behind the eyes, did what I had to do, sat there, came home, went back to bed, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I just was back on the dance floor.
Really?
Yep.
That's
Every
scary.
single time. And it was the same thing repeating over and over and over. And I just remember opening my eyes on the dance floor, and all I saw was everything was just blurry.
Oh my god!
Everything was blurry, and all I heard was whispers. That's it.
So did you talk
I
to
could
your
hear
friend?
people whispering. I
Were you
don't
like,
know what
what
happened.
the fuck?
I don't
did
know
you
what
give me?
happened. I did ask my friend afterwards, and they were like, "Oh no, we don't know. We don't know what happened." And I was like, "Okay, that's weird."
Yeah.
But these weren't really my friends. I kind of just knew
okay.
them from out and about, so it's
Yeah.
not like I had easy contact with them.
Okay. God, that's so terrifying because.
Oh yeah. And after that moment, specific moment, I stopped drinking alcohol for 11 years.
Really?
Yep. For 11 years. From 2006 to 2017, I did not drink.
So were you like a conscious choice, or was it just
Yeah.
because that
Whole
incident
thing
was so horrific?
That whole thing was so bad that I did not want to ever, because I didn't know if it was water or if it was the pot with acid or something.
Yeah.
So every time I took a sip of something that I didn't know what was, or like even like I remember I would still go out afterwards and I would have a bottle of water, and every time I took a sip of it, I was always worried or scared that I would go back into this induced state.
God, that's
Yeah.
terrifying.
So that's why I didn't drink. I didn't have alcohol. I had nothing for 11 years.
So were you completely sober, or were you still smoking or anything? Nothing.
Nothing.
Wow, I did not know that about you.
Yep. I was sober for 11 years.
Welcome to the Ex Drinking Buddy podcast. Look at that.
I know. You were like, "Oh, I don't know if he has anything." And I was like, "You never know." Yeah. You never
You tricked me.
I know.
You son of a gun.
So, yeah, I did not drink for 11 years. The first time I drank was on New Year's Eve, and my friend and
2017?
Yeah, my friend Justin and I think 2016 or 2017. I know it was definitely at least 10 years. But I know I remember the first time I had a sip of drink was I went out for New Year's Eve, and my friend Justin ordered champagne, and so I took a sip of champagne, and that was it.
And just a sip?
Yep.
And you weren't like, okay, I'm back on. You were kind of hesitant.
I was hesitant. I was like, all right, let me just. I took a sip and I was like, okay, I'm good.
Okay.
And that was it. And then honestly, I haven't really drank since then.
I was gonna say, because I see you, I'm around you enough to know that you will have a drink every once in a while.
Yeah.
So that's why in my head I was like, well, he's not sober because he can drink like on occasion. But then I see some comics around and they just get housed. Like, let's go. But I've never seen you like that. So I was like, does he not like,
I will enjoy. I don't. There's also a part of me where I'm like, I don't find spending $40 on $40 for a glass of clear liquid.
Yeah, that's true.
Fiscally responsible.
I've gone to.
I would rather buy like a sweatshirt or something like that.
Yeah, I've gone out before. Obviously, everyone knows that Savannah drinks, and I've gone out to eat with her before. To restaurants I've gone to by myself, and like, it's New York, so by the time I leave there with tip and everything, it's like $30 for me. But then I'll go there sometimes with Savannah, and I'm not paying attention. She just, we order what we order, and then I'll get the bill, and it's like $120, and I'm like, what the actual fuck?
Huh?
And it's like $22 per glass of wine. It's all this extra stuff, and I'm like, I always forget how expensive it is to drink.
Yesterday I went out, and yesterday I went out with someone, and we went to lunch. And
lunch in the city.
Lunch in the city. We get the bill. I was like, I'll take care of the bill. Don't worry about it. We get the bill, $76 for lunch.
It's insane.
$76 for lunch.
Yeah, it's the alcohol that always throws me.
Yeah. Well, we didn't even have alcohol.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, because
I see why people have like liquid brunches.
Yeah.
Because of like I can just have a drink and then be like, all right, well, that's my lunch, and boom, done.
There we go. I walk by because we live on 2nd Ave. There's a lot of like little.
That's very heterosexual.
Is it?
Yeah, it's very heterosexual over there.
I thought. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
It is very heterosexual.
Yeah. We had, speaking of ex-drinking buddy stories, we had a young lady passed out on our stoop last night, and I did not know what to do. So I was like, what do we do? Savannah was irritated more than anything. She's like, fucking tell her to leave. So I was like, okay, because we have a big dog that we're trying to like walk, and she's sprawled in front of the stoop, just out.
Yeah.
So I go to take the dog out, and I'm like, you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. And I was like, are you sure? Like, do you need me to call anybody? Do you need me to like move you anywhere? And she was clearly like well off. Like she was very like nicely dressed and everything. She was just out. So I call 311 because I don't know what to do. And then I end up getting transferred to the precinct that's right near my house. And I was like, I guess I'm going to talk to the police.
Yeah.
And she was just fucked up. But I say that because...
Wait, did the police come?
Yeah, they eventually came. But by the time they got there, she had stumbled away. I didn't like stand outside and wait. I called and then was in my apartment like a little baby, like looking out my window. But the reason I say that is because where I live, there's so many bars. And we walk, like I walk out in the morning, like today coming here, I'm walking down just 2nd Avenue and I'm looking and it's like $50, 1 hour bottomless mimosas.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Like $75 bottomless mimosas, no time limit.
You do know that mimosas are 90% orange juice and 1% awful like
Garbage.
liquor store garbage.
Champagne. Not even Prosecco because it's not champagne.
So you're literally drinking $50 worth of orange juice.
And it's crazy to me because in New York, they put time limits on it.
Yeah.
They don't do that in Florida. In Florida, it's like $20, bottomless mimosas, all brunch. You can go there from 9 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon.
Yeah, but the problem is here is that they want turnover.
Yeah.
Like
I
they
get
need
in
to
trouble
turn
at work.
over.
Sometimes if people order another round after dinner, my managers will come up and go, hey, we need that table. And I go, yeah, they're just having after dinner drinks. They go, no. We told them when they sat down they had to be out by 8:15. It's 8:09. Like, get them out of here. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I didn't think that was a thing. But like you said, in
I've
New
done
York.
that. Well, you know what it is we've done that before where like I've gone out to dinner and we'll go to a place and they'll be like, yeah, well, you can seat you as long as you're done by 7:00. Or like as long as you're done by 8 because they have other reservations.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm a fast eater. So I'll take the table and then be done by 8. But I can see where people are like,
sometimes
oh, no.
people think it's a suggestion. And it's like, no, we told you had to be out by 8.
Yeah.
Like, you
and then
need
they
to
get
leave.
irritated. And I'm like, but here's the thing. I hate lingering at dinner.
I hate it.
I hate it. I want to eat. I want to enjoy my meal.
But then I'm done.
But then I'm done.
I have no reason to hang out here.
I have no reason. There's no reason. It's not like there's artwork. There's not a TED Talk. There's nothing happening. I want to go home.
Even if it's cool, it's like, yeah, like we went to that place that's inside the pawn shop. I forget what it's called. Have you heard of this?
No.
So there's like this swanky restaurant. It was down near Pier 36. We went before the Van Gogh experience. And we go in and you walk into a pawn shop. And then they click a little button and this like false wall opens up and there's a restaurant. And it's beautiful. It's immaculate. There's chandeliers and it's art. The building itself is artistic.
Right.
But still, when I'm done eating, it's time to go.
Yeah.
Like even in this super swanky cool building, it's like, yeah, but there's no reason to. I've seen it. I don't need to sit here and keep looking at it.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why people want to just hang out.
Oh no! I'm like, as soon as I'm like, that's why the biggest thing for me is when I'm done, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask for the check, and my biggest pet peeve is sitting through a friend's birthday brunch or dinner, and it lasts for 4 hours.
Yeah, and you don't feel like you're allowed to leave because it's for them.
Right, but like that's a great thing about comedy is they'll be like, oh, I have a show. Sorry, I have to go.
Yeah.
Oh,
you can always pull the show.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I have a show.
But Oscar, it's 2:00 on a Sunday. Yeah, it's a early show.
Brunch show.
Or brunch
I'm doing
show.
a brunch show.
I'm doing a brunch in the East Village.
Yeah, I'm doing a brunch show in the East Village.
That makes sense.
Yeah, of course it does.
Have you, okay, so I want to go a couple different ways. Have you gotten like outrageously hammered since you've started drinking again?
I mean, I've gotten tipsy.
Okay.
Like I've gotten tipsy definitely, but I have not gotten like
You haven't blacked out or anything like that?
Nah, I don't like it.
Okay.
I don't like the feeling
Of being out of control?
Yeah, and also for me, I will usually drink vodka once in a while, but I'll drink tequila mostly.
Okay.
Because vodka, white wine, and red wine puts me to sleep.
Yeah.
I see. That's the thing is people can drink red wine, they're like, ah! And I'm like, half a glass of red wine,
And you're ready for bed.
and I'm ready for bed. I'm literally ready for bed after a half a glass of red wine. I'm like,
Just sitting at the table.
Yeah, I will fall. My eyes will start closing at the table.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because it's like half a glass of red. I mean, I'll enjoy it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll get through it. But after that, I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I'm good.
Do you have any other? Have you done anything else? Because you're not a drug person, correct? You don't do. Okay.
No.
So you've been. I cannot believe that you've had this fucking overdose. 3 days thinking you were dead. Crazy story. Just tucked away in your back pocket.
Yeah, I don't really talk about it that often.
Well, I'm glad you talk. I hope you don't mind talking about it on the
Oh
podcast.
God, no, I don't mind. Everybody knows. I mean, except for my parents, but
Well, yeah. And they don't listen to podcasts, do they?
no. My mother just got running water 2 years ago.
Get out of here.
Mhm.
Where
She lives in the woods,
Oh, really?
so she was like,
In
"We're getting
Illinois?
running water," and I was like, "Okay."
How were they getting water before? Well water.
Yep. Well,
Is she in Illinois?
No, she's in Norway, but that's a different. That's a totally
That's a
different. Yeah,
Different podcast.
that's a different time. That's a long fucking story, and yeah,
Okay, I got you.
yeah. So
So you grew up. So you did grow up in Chicago. Okay.
I grew up in Chicago, and then I went to Columbia College there, which was great. But
Do you
also
ever just tell
pointless.
people I went to Columbia?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah, I was
people
gonna
always like, "Oh, where'd you go to college?" I'm like, "I went to Columbia," and then
You
I just,
have to say that.
yeah, and then I just walk away and be like, "College Chicago," so at least I don't feel. At least I don't feel guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, this was a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh, I love this. There's actually a lot
Sorry
of
for
fun.
the technical difficulties.
No, don't worry about it. Everything went really like smoothly, and like the time went by so fast.
Yeah. So we're at about an hour. Plug everything one more time. Your podcast.
All right,
everything.
so I have a podcast called Oh Oscar.
Oh,
It's
Oscar.
It's on Spotify and
Apple?
iTunes. I guess iTunes,
Yeah,
Apple
yeah,
Podcasts.
Apple, yeah.
And then I also put it up on YouTube, so you can go to Oh Oscar.
Is it video?
Yep, it's Oscar Aydin. So I do a few episodes on there. And then I do also I'm on Instagram, it's Oscar Aydin, and then Twitter, I have GayDHD. And you can always check out the Stand website, the Stand NYC. If you just find me under the comics or the comedians, you'll see all the shows that I'm on. I'm also at Greenwich and Broadway Comedy Club.
Yeah. Broadway. I told you this after it happened, but that was an interesting experience when I did it because you were like the person they brought up as the poster child for almost for like the industry room. I told you that.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Where the booker was like, most people in this room aren't going to get passed. You're not going to be asked back, but keep trying, like keep going. We'll give you feedback. He goes, but we see it all the time. Like we had Oscar Aydin, very funny comedian, now a paid regular at the Stand.
Really? He said that?
Yeah, he said he now.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
I'm pretty
awkward.
sure he said that.
Yeah.
And he was like, maybe he didn't say that. Maybe I'm just
Or,
adding
yeah.
to your credits. But he was like, Oscar Aydin, very funny comic. Maybe he said around New York.
Yeah.
But he said he came here. We put him on the residency program. And then, now he's a paid regular
Right.
here in Greenwichville. Like, he was like, do you guys know Oscar? This fucking room, Oscar killed it. And I was like, oh.
Did he say that? Really?
He brought you up. Because I remember the reason it sticks out in my head so much is because when he said Oscar Aydin, I chuckled. And he looked at me and goes, what? And I go, I love Oscar. And he goes, yeah, that's what I'm getting at. We do too. And I was like, well, I'll just go fuck myself, I guess.
I love it. You know what? I will say this, and I've always said this. Rich is the only person in the beginning, and I've talked to other comics or I've talked to other people, and they've kind of given me advice. But Rich was the only one who actually told me what I needed to work on.
Yeah.
No one else would ever say anything. No talent managers, no nothing. They're like, Rich was like, because Rich has been in the industry for years. He is a veteran.
Few decades,
He's a legend in the industry. He's seen literally everyone come and go. Emma Willman started, I think, out at Broadway. Nori Davis started out at Broadway. Like all these people he's seen everyone. And he looked at me and he was like, you have great stage presence and you have a lot of good, but he's like, I need material. He's like, you don't have any material. He's like, how am I going to give you 10 to 15 spots Or how am I going to give you 10-minute, 15-minute spots if I don't know if you have material? And ever since that day, I have literally just had that in the back of my mind. And so for me, that was the greatest gift that anyone, because he made me a better comic. And I will always tell, and people have different opinions about the industry room, and that's fine. But because of his experience and my experience, I will always give him credit for a lot of my success.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed it, because when he called me to give me my feedback, it was funny because he said, you have a very good stage presence. And I said, thank you. And then he goes, but you're more of a storyteller. And I am a storyteller.
Right.
So I did not realize that was a constructive critique.
Right.
I said, thank you. And he goes, no, that's not what I'm saying. He goes, in New York, you have to have more you need jokes.
Yeah.
Like, you need to take your stories, because they're very funny. They're very good. He even called one of the premises. He's like, that's like genius. I never thought about that. That's so good. He goes, but you have to boil it down.
Right.
You have to boil it down.
Who was I talking to? Gus Constantalis. I was talking to him, and he was like, usually when you're doing a set, 90% of what you're saying can be cut out.
Yeah.
And then the rest is your joke.
It was interesting, too, because I did a show with Jill Kimmel. Huge fan, friend, love Jill. She was doing a show at Broadway and put me on it. This is like a month into living in New York. And I was like, wow, I booked a show a month in. I haven't even done an open mic yet. And now I'm going,
Right.
I'm doing a show with Jill. And then obviously I found open mics and I was getting ready for the show. I did 15 minutes with her. I had no idea what spot I was doing. I had no idea how much time I was doing. I just said, yeah, I'll do the show. And then I got there. She's like, you're going to go up front. And you're going to do 15. And I was like, okay, here we go. Between the move and everything, I hadn't, other than the open mics I did, I hadn't been on like a stage for a show in a long time.
Right.
Like a few months. So I get up there and it goes fine. But then when I go to do the industry room, it's literally the same set. It's just 5 minutes instead of 15.
Right.
Because there's so much like
stuff
you can cut out.
Right. So like also in those auditions, it should be your best material.
Yeah.
Like that should be like, Amina Imani, she just got passed at the Cellar. And that 5 minutes should be your best 5 minutes ever. Like literally your A plus game. And that's the thing is like when you audition at clubs, it's always your A game.
Mm-hmm.
Always your A game. And that's the thing. It's like, and I will say this to comedians, and I will say this to anyone and everyone. If you are auditioning for a spot at a club or to get past, show up at least 45 minutes early.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. Wait outside. I don't care if it's freezing cold.
I smoked like 10 cigarettes before.
Get to that space 45 minutes early because you never know. And then when you do get your spots or residency, if the spot time is 9:10, don't show up at 9:10. Show up at 8:40, 8:45 because you never know what's happening. They may need an extra comic. I can't tell you how many times I've been at Greenwich Village and new comics who get a residency, their spot time is like 9:10 or 9:20 and they will show up at 9:20. And I'm like, no.
That's not how this works.
No. You show up at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you wait until your spot time. And then when you're done, you can leave.
Yeah.
But and people will come in and they're like, oh, I thought my spot time was 9:10. Yeah. But that doesn't mean you show up right at 9:10. Because I remember I was doing a show at Greenwich and it was me, the host, and that was it.
Really?
And there were no other comics. So the manager had to run to the pair and get a comedian because no one was there yet. Now, I understand things happen. People run late. That's totally understandable. It happens. I've had to text people and be like, hey, I'm on my way. I may be 5 minutes late, just FYI, but I'm on my way. But showing up just because you're like, okay. I mean, I always say club spots are the most important in the world. They always come above everything else.
Yeah.
If someone says, hey, I got a show in Brooklyn on Saturday at 8 o'clock, and then someone says, hey, you're going to get a spot in, at a club, you take the club.
Yeah.
You take the club because that is a guaranteed audience. That show in Brooklyn, even though it may or may not, most times it does have an audience, the club spot is the most important. Like
and there's a lot more that can come from the club spot.
Right.
A bar show is not booking you 5 nights a week to do comedy.
Right. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So, No, this was great. I had a wonderful
I do
time.
appreciate you coming on. We've been trying to do this for a little while. I'm
I know.
so glad. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Okay,
good. Follow me at Brennan T Comedy, Brennan T Comedy on all social media. Check out the website, BrennanTComedy.com, Patreon.com/Brennan Tassif. Check out the merch store.
OnlyFans?
No OnlyFans.
Okay.
I had a
Shucks.
guest come in the other day. Totally threw me for a loop. Older gentleman. Very big guy. And just by himself, everything was fine. And then he, at the end of the meal, and he came in early. At the end of the meal, he goes, hey, so this might be totally inappropriate, but what would I have to do to get you to come have a drink with me? And I was like, now? He goes, yeah. I go, I'm working. And then he left me an extra 20 spot. And I was like, oh, oopsies. Anyway, thank you, everybody, for listening. I was like, I still got it.
Shut up, Brian.
BrennanTComedy.com, and we'll talk to y'all next week.